Hey there guys, this is Richard, your host, with another marvelous video. This time, Craven the Hunter, deadly Spider-Man villain no one talks about. Spider-Man has faced many foes and his rogue gallery is vast and deadly. One of the many people he has faced in his term as a crime-fighting superhero is Kraven, and mind you, he's no ordinary enemy. Craven the Hunter first appeared in a 1964 issue of The Amazing Spider-Man and is considered one of the best out of the web-slinger's B-list supervillains. He comes from the legendary Stan Lee and Steve Ditko period of Spider-Man comics. Sergei Kravinoff is a mercenary and large game hunter who earned the moniker Kraven the Hunter after establishing himself as the world's finest hunter. However, he remains underappreciated and undiscovered because of less visibility on the silver screen. Kraven's physical talents are strengthened by a strange elixir that may be of magical origin, in addition to his expertise in traps and a vast assortment of weaponry, and his ingenious attempts to assassinate Spider-Man. His fascination with the web-slinger and his perverted sense of honor made him a fan favorite Spider-Man villain among many readers. For years, filmmakers have attempted to feature him as a traditional Spider-Man foe in numerous Marvel films. However, following a small preview in Spider-Man No Way Home, it appears that the same villain will be making an appearance on the big screen. Craven the Hunter will star Aaron Taylor Johnson as the titular character in a Sony Universe solo film. Several set photos from Sony's upcoming film Morbius feature references to Spider-Man villains like Silver Sable and Craven the Hunter. With a major debut on the way, this is all we know about skilled hunter Kraven, how he became a villain and his life as one. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Kraven.
Craven the Hunter in Spider-Man the Animated Series. The origin story of Craven the Hunter was told in Spider-Man, the animated series, in his debut episode. Turns out that he was a Russian hunter known as Sergei Kravinoff, and he hunted big game in Africa. However, when hunting became outlawed, he started working as a guide in the African jungles. It is on one of these guided expeditions that Dr. Mariah Crawford met Kraven as she searched for her friend, Dr. James Reeves, who had disappeared while doing research in the jungles. Sergei and Dr. Mariah fell in love, and they finally found Dr. James, who had been transformed into a feral beast due to the miracle drug he had created in his time there. This miracle drug could cure all illness and disease. However, disaster struck when Dr. Mariah Crawford, Kraven's fiancée and love, was attacked while in Africa. Sergei was gravely injured during the fight, and Dr. Crawford employed the same miracle medicine to try to treat his wounds. She had been told not to because the medicine was harmful in its current state, but she felt she had no alternative. Kraven's physical recuperation after taking the drug was remarkable, but his mental state became bleak. Dr. Crawford was forced to look for a cure after he began hunting ferociously under the moniker Craven the Hunter. She maintained her studies while fleeing to the United States of America until Kraven caught up with her. After Spider-Man struggled with the Hunter, she eventually created one. In the 7th episode of the Spider-Man animated series, Kraven makes his first appearance as he destroys Dr. Mariah Crawford's laboratory at the Hardy Foundation. Dr. Crawford is then informed by Kraven that he has traveled a long distance to bring her home. Mariah, on the other hand, begs Kraven to allow her to stay so she can discover a treatment for him. Peter Parker comes up to Mariah's office door at that moment, thinking to himself about how he needs to ace the interview in order to secure a job working in a real laboratory. As Peter reaches Mariah's office, though, he hears shouting and broken glass from within. Peter peeks in to make sure everything is in order. Mariah's desk is thrown against the door by Kraven. She then dashes up the fire escape and out the window. Kraven, on the other hand, pursues her. Mariah then rushes to the roof where Kraven has her cornered. She loses her footing and falls off the building, but Spider-Man catches her. Spider-Man then returns her to the roof where she encounters Kraven. Spider-Man assaults Kraven, but he manages to gain the upper hand, and the two struggle until Kraven flees, and when Spider-Man and Mariah go looking for Kraven, they find him gone. Mariah screams at Spider-Man, telling him that no one can stop him and that she's in danger, after which Spider-Man then snatches up Mariah and swings her away on his web. On their way back, she tells him the story of how Kraven became who he was in Africa and that she was determined to look for a cure for him. In this episode, it's quite clear that Kraven's animalistic nature has gotten the better of him, and he wants his lover, Dr. Mariah, to come back to the jungles with him. He attacks and kidnaps Robbie, a man who he believes stole his beloved Mariah, and also pursues Spider-Man. Mariah, on the other hand, keeps experimenting with cures to restore Kraven's mind and tame the animalistic urges. The final showdown happens in a zoo where Kraven has held Robbie captive and Spider-Man comes to the rescue. However, Kraven is no ordinary foe and they are quite well matched. In their tussle, Kraven manages to capture him, but Mariah shows up, saving the day. Spider-Man becomes the Man-Spider in episode 21 of the animated series as Punisher continues his quest to take down the Wall Crawler. The only hope for Peter is his old foe, Kraven the Hunter. This episode is important because it establishes that Kraven is not all bad as he helps in defeating Punisher. This further goes on to show that Kraven the Hunter has appeared in the Spider-Man series as both friend and foe, and that he is another such character that walks the thin line between villain and hero. The final appearance that Kraven makes in this animated series is in episode 45 named The Return of Kraven, where some savage beast attacks the city of New York, wreaking havoc. Spider-Man immediately assumes that the beast is Kraven because the pattern of attack is similar, but it turns out that it was a completely different creature. This episode received a lot of positive feedback from the audience who enjoyed seeing more of Kraven and said this episode brought the most out of his character because he's more than just a hunter and a noble person. Spider-Man and Kraven are pitted against each other once again in this episode. Kraven reveals to Spider-Man that he's the creator of Stalker, the beast terrorizing New York City.
I am not the creature, but I did create it.
To Spider-Man's dismay, Kraven claims that the Stalker killed Mariah Crawford after he created it. Turns out that Mariah had contracted a disease when in Africa, and to cure her they had to use the miracle drug. However, it had a strange effect and turned her into a feral feline creature, the Stalker, and all Kraven wanted to do was to find the drug that Mariah had used on him earlier and cure her. They're successful in curing Mariah, and all is well in the end. Comic book origins of Kraven the Hunter. What makes him so deadly? According to the comics, in the early half of the 20th century, during the Russian Revolution, he was born and raised in Volgograd, Russia. Kravinoff, also known as Kraven the Hunter, was born from an aristocracy that had come to an end, and in order to satisfy his sense of lost nobility, he became one of the world's best hunters. After working in Kenya, Africa, Kravinoff discovered he had a wonderful aptitude. He developed a predilection for killing enormous creatures with his own hands when he was there. Kravinoff took a herbal elixir after meeting a voodoo witch doctor named Calypso, which improved his physical abilities and gave him the strength, speed, and senses of a jungle cat. The medicine also lengthened his life, allowing him to maintain his health and vitality for many more years. When the idea of hunting big wildlife became tedious, Chameleon offered to Kraven that he hunt Spider-Man, which gave Kraven a new purpose in life. Kraven got his abilities by imbibing rare and exotic jungle elixirs supplied to him by Calypso, his voodoo priestess girlfriend. These elixirs gave him the strength and speed of a ferocious beast, making him the ideal target for Spider-Man. Despite the Chameleon's assistance, his scheme failed, and he was deported from the United States. Kraven then sought strength in troops after failing to defeat the Wall Crawler on his own. He and 5 other members of Spider-Man's rogue gallery formed the Sinister Six early in his career, led by Dr. Octopus, and included the shifty Sandman, the illusion-casting Mysterio, the high-flying, low-down Vulture, and Electro. The master plan of the villains was to batter the Wall Crawler one by one until one of them was able to overcome him. However, they were all defeated. Kraven was hired by the Green Goblin to assassinate Spider-Man shortly after. But after learning of the Goblin's apparent demise, he set out to expose Spider-Man's flaws by enlisting the help of a few of his comrades: the Colossal Rhino, the carnivorous Cold-Blooded Lizard, the original Vulture, and his adversary, Raniero Blackie Drago. As time went on, his rage, mixed with his inability to apprehend the superhero, eroded Kraven's mind, resulting in the infamous Last Hunt. He devised a plan to defeat Spider-Man and then shot him in an unexpected manner. Kraven buried his enemy alive, believing him to be essentially dead. Following this, Kraven donned a replica of Spider-Man's outfit and set out to prove his superiority. He viciously attacked and thrashed offenders, resulting in the hospitalization of 15 individuals and the death of 1. He single-handedly kidnapped Vermin, a minor supervillain that Spider-Man needed Captain America's help to destroy. Following that victory, Spider-Man was quickly awakened from the tranquilizer dart he was shot with and dug his way out of the grave. Kraven, believing he had recovered his honor, left a note for the cops, confessing that he had impersonated Spider-Man and killed himself. This set up the stage for another well-known issue, the Grim Hunt. As part of a plan to resurrect Kraven and restore the Kravinoff's glory, Kraven's family, led by his wife Sasha Kravinoff, began enabling the resurrection of Spider-Man's foes in order to wear him down, as well as hunting for other spider-themed persons like Madame Web and Mattie Franklin. Kraven was resurrected, however, it was not Spider-Man who was sacrificed, but Kane. Kraven was not happy about being brought back to life and was even more upset when he learned that now he could only die at the hand of Spider-Man due to the mix-up in the ritual sacrifice. His story arcs post this resolve around tracking down and finding Spider-Man and Kane so that he could die at their hands and no longer have to live. He also made younger clones of himself, raised them to be hunters and sent them off into different corners of the world to conquer all he had lost and restore pride back to the Kravinoff name. He had also killed his wife and some of his own children because he believed that they were not strong enough to live in the wild with him, leading the life of savages. He was a complicated character, and the last hunt he would ever go on was the Great Hunt, in which he targeted Spider-Man once again with his last remaining son, who had killed all his other siblings in search for glory and greatness. With the way Kraven was obsessed with glory and honor, it was not a big surprise that his offspring also turned out to be this way. Kraven eventually called off the Great Hunt, freeing his slaves and releasing Spider-Man after realizing he was the kind of beast he had been hunting all along. Kraven donned Spider-Man's outfit and intercepted his son to die in fight against him, embracing Spider-Man's nobility and principles. The curse permitted Kraven to remain dead in the Great Hunt because his death was intentional, and so by his own hand, and he had become Spider-Man in spirit, thus marking the end of Kraven, allowing this tormented soul to finally rest in peace. He was a dangerous and formidable foe because Kraven was an expert hunter with a thorough understanding of animal behavior and tactics. He's well versed in traps as well as a variety of potions and powders. His strength, agility, and endurance are greatly enhanced when under the influence of the serum. He's on par with Spider-Man in terms of strength. He also has the same animal-like senses as Wolverine. Unlike most hunters, he avoided using weapons or bow and arrows, preferring instead to take down enormous hazardous creatures with his own hands, despite making intricate preparations to weaken them beforehand. He also employed a mysterious elixir to boost his strength to extraordinary levels, although he was a threat to the wall crawler even without it. Thus, in the comics, he was a layered and complicated villain and has a dark descent into madness and insanity, which resulted in his death. Post-resurrection, he was a broken shell of a man who simply wanted to die at the hand of the one he considered to be his arch-nemesis, and one cannot help but feel bad for him.
Welcome to my jungle.
Did No Way Home secretly hint at a movie on Kraven the Hunter? Kraven has appeared in a number of Spider-Man adaptations, including TV episodes such as Spider-Man the Animated Series and The Spectacular Spider-Man. Mark Webb had planned to feature Kraven in the Amazing Spider-Man films, and with Kraven's spear in the Amazing Spider-Man 2's credits, he teased his planned appearances in The Sinister Six and The Amazing Spider-Man 3. Despite the fact that these ideas never materialized, Kraven was included in Webb's Spider-Man continuity through offshoot material. Kraven served as Spider-Man's mentor for a short time before becoming his adversary in the video game The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Kraven is also a part of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man universe, courtesy of the video games. In anticipation of Kraven the Hunter's upcoming standalone film, No Way Home contained a subtle reference to him. Kraven came close to making his MCU debut on 2 occasions. Originally, Black Panther director and co-writer Ryan Coogler planned to include Kraven in the 2018 picture. The director of the MCU Spider-Man trilogy, John Watts, indicated interest in bringing Kraven into No Way Home, which would have resulted in a very different film. Kraven did, however, make an appearance in the film. The Green Goblin destroys Doctor Strange's multiverse-repairing artifact in the film's third act confrontation, virtually breaking the barriers between universes. Strange attempts to keep the gates together in No Way Home, which incorporates silhouettes of numerous Spider-Man-related characters. A man wielding a spear is among the figures in the collapsing multiverse, and he is most likely Kraven the Hunter. While this isn't the fan-favorite villain's real MCU debut, it does reveal that a cinematic version of Kraven exists in the Marvel movie universe. What we do know is that Kraven the Hunter will appear in his own Sony Universe film, starring Aaron Taylor Johnson as the eponymous character. The Kraven film will be the next in Sony's live-action schedule of films, based on the origin stories of Spider-Man's rogue gallery's villains and anti-heroes. On January 13th, 2023, Kraven the Hunter will be released. Art Markham, Matt Holloway, and Richard Wenk wrote the script, which will be directed by J.C. Chandor. In terms of the structure and narrative of Craven the Hunter, writer Richard Wenk had stated that the storyline was heavily influenced by Kraven's Last Hunt, probably the most important and dramatic Kraven story in the comics, which included an epic clash with Spider-Man. In fact, it's safe to claim that Spider-Man No Way Home was the first picture to feature the multiverse, and it may have paved the way for Craven the Hunter's film in the process of merging the 4 Spider-Man film franchises. Craven has the innate capacity to become a memorable villain in the MCU. We all love a good villain, especially one that is well written and layered, instead of being a one-dimensional bad guy, and Craven is all of that and more. It's super exciting that Craven will grace the big screens as an origin movie in likelihood is slated to be released. A villain who is not black, not white, but inherently grey is the perfect pick to become a new favourite in the superhero-supervillain genre. And we're really looking forward to it. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.